when we hear the word sacrifice. Our minds often jump to images of deprivation or loss. But I want you to shift that perspective. Think of sacrifice not as giving up something, but as investing in your future. It's a trade-off between instant gratification and long-term fulfillment. Imagine you are planting a garden. You take a perfectly good seed, one you could eat right now if you wanted to, and you bury it in the ground. To an outside observer, it might look like you are throwing away food. But you know better. You know that by sacrificing that seed, now you are setting the stage for a bountiful harvest in the future. That's exactly what we're talking about when we discuss making sacrifices for a better tomorrow. It's about having the wisdom to see beyond the immediate and invest in your future self. There was once a young woman named Olivia. Fresh out of college, she landed a comfortable job with a decent salary. Many of her peers were buying new cars, renting luxurious apartments, and enjoying lavish vacations. Olivia, however, made a different choice. She lived in a tiny studio apartment, drove an old car, and spent her evenings and weekends working on a business idea she'd been nurturing since college. Her friends thought she was missing out on life. They couldn't understand why she was wasting her youth working so hard. Fast forward 5 years, Olivia's business had taken off. She was not only financially successful, but also deeply fulfilled, knowing she was making a difference in her industry. The sacrifices she made in those early years, the parties missed, the vacations postponed, the long hours worked, had paid off in ways she could never have imagined. Olivia's story illustrates a fundamental truth. Success often requires short-term pain for long-term gain. It's about delayed gratification, the ability to resist the temptation of an immediate reward in favor of a later, more enduring reward. I can almost hear some of you thinking, that's easier said than done. And you are absolutely right. Our brains are wired for instant gratification. We are descendants of ancestors who had to focus on immediate survival, not long-term planning. So when we choose to sacrifice immediate pleasures for future gains, we are actually fighting against our own biology. Like any skill, the ability to make sacrifices and delay gratification can be developed and strengthened over time. It's like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. So how do we build this sacrifice muscle? It starts with clarity of vision. You need to have a clear, compelling picture of the future you are working towards. Without this vision, sacrifices feel pointless and unsustainable. Take a moment right now to envision your ideal future. Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years? What kind of person do you want to become? What impact do you want to have on the world? The clearer and more detailed this vision, the easier it becomes to make sacrifices in its pursuit. Once you have this vision, the next step is to identify the key areas where sacrifices need to be made. These usually fall into 4 categories: time, money, energy, and comfort. Time is our most precious resource. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, but how we choose to use those hours makes all the difference. Are you willing to sacrifice an hour of sleep to work on your side hustle? Can you give up some TV time to learn a new skill? Remember, when you say no to one thing, you are saying yes to something else. Financial sacrifices can be particularly challenging, especially in a culture that often equates spending with happiness. But the ability to delay financial gratification is one of the most powerful predictors of long-term success. Consider the story of John, a software engineer. While his colleagues were buying expensive cars and gadgets, John lived frugally and invested a significant portion of his income. It wasn't easy. He had to resist the constant temptation of new tech releases and luxury items. But John kept his eyes on his long-term goal, financial independence. 10 years later, John had built a substantial investment portfolio that gave him the freedom to pursue his passions without financial constraints. His sacrifices had bought him something priceless: freedom. The third area of sacrifice is energy. We all have a finite amount of physical and mental energy each day. How we choose to allocate that energy can make or break our long-term success. Are you willing to sacrifice the comfort of lounging on the couch after a long day of work to hit the gym instead? Can you push through mental fatigue to complete that online course that will advance your career? These energy sacrifices compound over time, leading to better health, increased skills, and ultimately, more fulfilling life. Finally, we have comfort Growth and comfort rarely coexist. To achieve great things, you often need to be willing to step out of your comfort zone. This might mean moving to a new city for a better job opportunity, speaking in public even if it terrifies you, or taking on challenges that stretch your abilities. Remember Olivia from our earlier story. One of her biggest sacrifices was comfort. She could have stayed in her cushy job, enjoying predictable work hours and a steady paycheck. Instead, she chose the uncertainty and stress of entrepreneurship. It wasn't comfortable, but it led her to a life of purpose and achievement. It's crucial to understand that effective sacrifice is not about depriving yourself of all pleasure or living a joyless life. It's about being intentional with your choices and ensuring they align with your long-term vision. A sustainable diet is not about never eating foods you enjoy. It's about making mindful choices most of the time so that you can indulge occasionally without derailing your progress. The same principle applies to life sacrifices. This brings us to an important point, the concept of minimum effective sacrifice. Just as in exercise, where there's a concept of minimum effective dose, the least amount of exercise needed to achieve the desired result. In life, we should aim for the minimum amount of sacrifice needed to achieve our goals. This doesn't mean taking the easy way out. It means being smart and strategic about your sacrifices. It's about consistently making small, sustainable sacrifices rather than grand, unsustainable gestures. Meet Michael, a middle-aged man who decided to change careers. He had a stable job in finance, but dreamed of becoming a teacher. The traditional path would have been to quit his job and go back to school full-time. But Michael had a family to support and couldn't afford to lose his income. So instead, Michael made a series of smaller, sustainable sacrifices. He cut back on hobbies and social activities to make time for online education courses in the evenings. He downsized his family's vacation plans and used the saved money for tuition. He woke up an hour earlier each day to study before work. These sacrifices weren't easy, but they were manageable. And over the course of 3 years, they added up. Michael earned his teaching credential without putting his family in financial jeopardy. He successfully transitioned to his new career, fulfilling his dream without resorting to drastic measures. Michael's story teaches us that effective sacrifice is not always about making huge life-altering changes. Sometimes it's about consistently making smaller choices that compound over time. Dealing with the opinions of others when you start making significant changes in your life. Not everyone will understand or support your choices. You might face criticism, skepticism, or pressure to conform to others' expectations. This is where the strength of your conviction comes into play. When you are clear about your goals and the reasons behind your sacrifices, it becomes easier to stand firm in the face of others' opinions. Consider the story of Emma, a talented artist working a corporate job. When she decided to quit her stable career to pursue art full-time, many people in her life thought she was making a huge mistake. They couldn't understand why she would give up a good salary and benefits for the uncertainty of an artistic career. But Emma had a clear vision of life she wanted to live. She knew that the corporate world, while comfortable, wasn't fulfilling her. She had saved up, created a plan, and was willing to make the sacrifices necessary to pursue her passion. It wasn't easy. There were times when the doubts of others crept into her own mind, but Emma stayed focused on her goal. She reminded herself daily of why she made this choice, and slowly but surely her dedication paid off. Today, Emma is a successful artist, living a life that aligns with her values and passions. Olivia's story highlights an important truth. The most worthwhile sacrifices often require us to go against the grain. They require us to disappoint some people in the short term to honor our own long-term vision. The importance of self-care. It might seem counterintuitive, but taking care of yourself is essential when you are pushing towards big goals. If you burn out, you won't be able to sustain your efforts in the long run. Your energy and willpower are like muscles. They can be strengthened through consistent use, but they also need time to recover. So while you are making sacrifices in some areas of your life, make sure you are also investing in activities that recharge you. This might mean setting aside time for exercise, meditation, or simply quiet reflection. It might mean maintaining certain relationships that give you strength and support. Whatever it is for you, make sure it's non-negotiable. These aren't indulgences. They are investments in your ability to keep making progress towards your goals. The art of saying no. Every time you say yes to something, you are inherently saying no to something else. Your time and energy are finite resources. To make room for what truly matters, you need to become comfortable with saying no to things that don't align with your long-term vision. This doesn't mean becoming a recluse or never doing anything fun. It means being intentional about how you spend your time and energy. It means learning to differentiate between opportunities that will move you closer to your goals and distractions that will pull you off course. For instance, saying no to a night out with friends might allow you to say yes to making progress on your side business. Saying no to a promotion that would require you to compromise your values allows you to say yes to maintaining your integrity. Mastering the art of saying no is a crucial skill in making effective sacrifices. It's about prioritizing what truly matters to you and being willing to let go of the rest. David was a classic yes man. He took on every project, attended every meeting, and never turned down a request for help. On the surface, this made him appear dedicated and hardworking. But in reality, it was holding him back from achieving his true potential. David's inability to say no meant he was spread too thin. He was working long hours but not making meaningful progress on his most important goals. His health was suffering and his family life was strained. We worked together to help David get clear on his priorities and learn to say no. It wasn't easy. He worried about disappointing others or missing out on opportunities. But as he practiced saying no to things that didn't align with his goals, he found he had more time and energy for what truly mattered. Within 6 months, David had made more progress on his key projects than he had in the previous 2 years. He was healthier, happier, and more fulfilled. By learning to say no, he had said yes to a better life. The effective story illustrates an important point. Effective sacrifice is not just about what you give up. It's also about what you choose to focus on. By saying no to the non-essential, you create space for the essential. The tendency to sacrifice too much. Yes, you heard that right. It is possible to take the concept of sacrifice too far. Remember, the goal of making sacrifices is to create a better life, not a miserable one. If you find that your sacrifices are causing significant distress or harming important relationships, it might be time to reassess. This is where a concept of sustainable sacrifice comes in. Sustainable sacrifice is about finding a balance between working towards your goals and maintaining your overall well-being. It's about making choices that you can sustain over the long term, not just for a few weeks or months. The story of Lisa, a young entrepreneur. When she first started her business, she thought sacrifice meant working 20-hour days, never taking time off, and pouring every penny she had into the company. She was making progress, but she was also miserable. Her health was deteriorating, her relationships were suffering, and she was on the verge of burnout. Lisa realized that if she continued on this path, she wouldn't have the stamina to see her vision through to completion. She needed to find a more sustainable approach. So she reassessed her sacrifices. She set boundaries around her work hours, ensuring she had time for sleep and self-care. She allocated some funds for activities that recharged her, like yoga classes and occasional dinners with friends. She even took one day off each week to completely disconnect from work. Interestingly, these changes didn't slow Lisa's progress. If anything, they accelerated it. With proper rest and a more balanced life, Lisa found she was more creative, more productive, and better able to handle the challenges of entrepreneurship. Her business thrived, and so did she. Lisa's story teaches us that effective sacrifice is not about giving up everything. It's about being intentional and strategic with your resources. It's about finding a sustainable pace that allows you to keep moving towards your goals without burning out. The willingness to make sacrifices is a skill that can be developed. Like any skill, it gets easier because each time you choose long-term benefit over short-term gratification, you are strengthening your sacrifice muscle. Start small. Maybe it's choosing to read a book instead of watching TV one night a week, or saving a small portion of your income instead of spending it on something unnecessary. As you see the benefits of these small sacrifices, you will be motivated to take on bigger challenges. Remember, the goal is not to live a life of constant deprivation. The goal is to make conscious choices that align with your values and long-term objectives. It's about trading good things for even better things. The power of incremental progress. Often, when we think about making sacrifices for a better tomorrow, we imagine dramatic, life-altering changes. But the reality is that most significant achievements are the result of small, consistent efforts over time. Building a house, you don't just wake up one day and poof, there's a house. It's built brick by brick, day by day. The same principle applies to building the life of your dreams. It's the result of countless small sacrifices and choices made consistently over time. And the concept of the one rule comes in handy. The idea is simple. Aim to get better each day. It might not seem like much, but that one compounds over time. In a year, you are not just 365 better due to the power of compounding. You are actually 37 times better. Maybe you can't completely overhaul your life overnight, but can you make a choice today that makes you one better than you were yesterday? Can you sacrifice one of your comfort zone, one of your leisure time, one of your unnecessary spending? These small sacrifices might not feel significant in the moment, but when you stack them up day after day, week after week, year after year after year, that's when the magic happens. That's when you look back and realize how far you have come. Consider the story of Tom, a middle-aged man who dreamed of running a marathon. Tom was overweight, out of shape, and had never run more than a mile in his life. The idea of running 26.2 miles seemed impossible. But Tom decided to apply the one rule. He started by sacrificing 15 minutes of TV time each day for a short walk. As he got fitter, he gradually increased the duration and intensity of his workouts. He made small changes to his diet, giving up one unhealthy food item at a time. None of these individual sacrifices seemed huge, but they added up. After a year, Tom had lost 50 pounds and could run 5 miles without stopping. After 2 years, he completed his first half marathon. And 3 years after he started, Tom crossed the finish line of a full marathon. Tom's story is a powerful reminder that big dreams are achieved through small, consistent sacrifices. It's not about making one huge sacrifice. It's about making many small sacrifices day after day, week after week. The power of incremental progress. It's important to address the role of patience in making sacrifices for a better tomorrow. In our fast-paced, instant gratification world, patience can feel like a lost art. But it's an essential ingredient in any recipe for long-term success. When you make sacrifices for a better tomorrow, the results often don't materialize overnight. This is where patience becomes crucial. It's the ability to persist in your efforts even when you can't yet see the fruits of your labor. Patience is what allows you to keep making those daily sacrifices, to keep pushing forward even when progress seems slow. It's what enables you to trust in the process, knowing that your consistent efforts will eventually pay off. Consider the journey of a bamboo farmer. When a farmer plants bamboo seeds, nothing appears to happen for the first 4 years. The farmer must water and nurture the soil daily with no visible signs of growth. It would be easy to become discouraged, to think all that effort was for nothing. But the patient farmer persists. Then in the 5th year, something remarkable happens. The bamboo suddenly shoots up, growing up to 90 feet in just 6 weeks. What appeared to be 4 years of fruitless labor was actually the bamboo developing a complex root system that would support its rapid growth. This metaphor beautifully illustrates the nature of many of life's most worthwhile pursuits. The sacrifices you make today may not show immediate results, but they are building a foundation for future success. Developing a new skill, like learning a musical instrument. In the beginning, progress can feel painfully slow. You sacrifice hours of your time practicing, repeating the same scales and exercises over and over. It might feel like you are not getting anywhere. But if you remain patient and persistent, eventually things start to click. Suddenly, you can play pieces that once seemed impossibly difficult. Your sacrifices have paid off, but it required patience to get there. The same principle applies in many areas of life. Building a successful business, losing weight, saving for retirement. These are all goals that require consistent sacrifice and unwavering patience. Maintaining motivation over time. It's one thing to make sacrifices when you are feeling inspired and energized. It's another to keep going when motivation wanes and doubts creep in. This is where the power of habit comes into play. When you turn your sacrifices into habits, you no longer have to rely solely on motivation or willpower. The actions become automatic, part of your daily routine. For instance, if you are sacrificing sleep to wake up early and work on a personal project, the first few weeks might be a struggle. You will have to fight the temptation to hit the snooze button every morning. But if you persist, eventually your body will adjust. Waking up early will become your new normal. The sacrifice becomes a habit. The key to forming these habits is consistency. It's better to make a small sacrifice every day than a big sacrifice once in a while. This consistent action not only builds the habit, but also creates momentum. And momentum is a powerful force in achieving long-term goals. Another crucial factor in maintaining long-term motivation is celebrating small wins along the way. When you are working towards a big goal, it's easy to focus solely on the end result and overlook the progress you're making along the way. But acknowledging and celebrating these small victories can provide the emotional fuel you need to keep going. Let's say you are sacrificing some of your disposable income to pay off debt. Each time you make a payment, no matter how small, celebrate it. Recognize that you are moving in the right direction. These small celebrations can boost your motivation and reinforce the positive habit you are building. It's also important to regularly remind yourself of the why behind your sacrifices. Why are you making these choices? What's the bigger picture? Keeping your ultimate goal in mind can help you push through the tough times when the sacrifices feel particularly challenging. Consider creating a vision board or writing a detailed description of the future you're working towards. Look at it regularly, especially when you're feeling discouraged. This visual reminder of your why can reignite your motivation and strengthen your resolve to continue making sacrifices. Play the role of adaptability. While it's important to stay committed to your goals, it's equally important to be flexible in your approach. The path to success is rarely a straight line, and sometimes the sacrifices you thought you needed to make might need to be adjusted. Life has a way of throwing curveballs. Circumstances change, new information comes to light, and what once seemed like the right sacrifice might no longer serve your ultimate goal. This is where the ability to pivot becomes crucial. Being adaptable doesn't mean abandoning your goals at the first sign of difficulty. Instead, it means being willing to reassess your approach and make changes when necessary. It's about being committed to your destination, but flexible about the route you take to get there. For example, let's say you are sacrificing your free time to learn a particular programming language, believing it will advance your career. But halfway through your studies, you discover that a different language is becoming more in demand in your industry. The adaptable person would be willing to pivot, to sacrifice the progress they have made in one area to start anew in a more promising direction. This adaptability also applies to the nature of the sacrifices themselves. Maybe you started out thinking you needed to sacrifice all your leisure time to achieve your goals. But over time, you realize this approach is leading to burnout. The adaptable person would be willing to adjust, perhaps finding a more balanced approach that's sustainable in the long term. Remember, the goal of making sacrifices is to create a better future and not to prove how much hardship you can endure. If your sacrifices are making you miserable or hindering your progress, it's okay to reevaluate and adjust. It's crucial to address the role of self-compassion in the process of making sacrifices. Often, when we commit to making sacrifices for a better tomorrow, we can become overly harsh with ourselves. We might bury ourselves for every slip-up or moment of weakness. But this self-criticism is rarely productive. In fact, it can be counterproductive, leading to discouragement and even giving up on our goals altogether. This is where self-compassion becomes essential. Self-compassion is not about making excuses or letting yourself off the hook. It's about treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a good friend. It's recognizing that setbacks and struggles are a normal part of any worthwhile journey. When you approach your sacrifices with self-compassion, you are more likely to bounce back from setbacks. Instead of beating yourself up over a moment of weakness, you can acknowledge it, learn from it, and move forward. For instance, let's say you are sacrificing some of your social life to focus on an important project. One weekend, you give in to the temptation to go out with friends instead of working. The self-critical approach would be to berate yourself, perhaps even deciding that you are not cut out for this level of sacrifice. The self-compassionate approach would be to acknowledge that you are human, that occasional lapses are normal, and to recommit to your goals without harsh self-judgment. This self-compassion also allows you to be more realistic in your expectations. It helps you recognize when you might be pushing yourself too hard or when you need to adjust your approach. It enables you to make sacrifices that are challenging but sustainable, rather than punishing and unsustainable. Touch on one final crucial aspect of making sacrifices for a better tomorrow. The importance of balance. While sacrifice is necessary for achieving great things, it's equally important to maintain a sense of balance in your life. Balance doesn't mean giving equal time and energy to every area of your life. Instead, it means ensuring that your sacrifices in one area don't completely undermine other important aspects of your life and well-being. For example, sacrificing some leisure time to work on a side project can be productive, but sacrificing all your leisure time to the point where you never relax or connect with loved ones can lead to burnout and damaged relationships. The key is to find a balance where you are making meaningful progress towards your goals while still maintaining your overall quality of life. This balance also involves being present in the moment, even as you work towards future goals. While it's important to make sacrifices for a better tomorrow, it's equally important not to sacrifice your entire present in the process. Find ways to appreciate and enjoy your journey even as you work towards your destination. Making sacrifices for a better tomorrow is a powerful strategy for creating the life you desire. It's about having the wisdom to forgo immediate gratification for long-term fulfillment. It's about being willing to do today what others won't, so you can have tomorrow what others can't. Remember, every great achievement in history has been the result of sacrifice. Every inventor, entrepreneur, athlete, or artist who has made a significant impact has had to sacrifice something to reach their goals. Look at your life with fresh eyes. Where are you settling for immediate gratification at the expense of your long-term happiness and success? What sacrifices could you make that would move you closer to your goals? Imagine yourself a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. What kind of life do you want to be living? What kind of person do you want to be? Now ask yourself, what am I willing to give up today to become that person and live that life? The choices you make today are shaping your tomorrow. Every sacrifice you make is a step towards the future you desire. It won't always be easy. There will be times when you question whether it's worth it. In those moments, remember why you started. Remember the vision that inspired you to make these changes. You have within you the power to shape your destiny. You have the ability to delay gratification, to make tough choices, to sacrifice for a better tomorrow. It's not about having an easy life. It's about having a meaningful life. A life where you can look back and know that you gave it your all, that you didn't settle for less than you were capable of achieving. Embrace the power of sacrifice. See it not as a burden, but as a tool for transformation. Use it to sculpt the life you dream of, one choice at a time. Your future self will thank you for the investments you make today. The path of sacrifice is not always easy, but it's always worth it. Because on that path, you will discover not just success, but also strength, resilience, and a deep sense of fulfillment. You will discover the best version of yourself. Go forth with courage and conviction. Make those sacrifices. Invest in your future. And watch as the life you have always dreamed of begins to unfold before your eyes. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Make that step today. Your better tomorrow is waiting.